Hey everybody, I thought I'd do a quick video on this because I had bought this like a few years ago and just never used it. I want to talk today a little bit real quick about Phosphate RX and my experience with it. So I tested I was having a green hairy algae problem, which, I didn't have a whole lot of herbivores in my tank. I had a few, but, not a whole lot. So anyway, it wasn't terrible, but it was enough where I had to, pull some. I can't, my rock's in my tank. I can't pull it out and scrub it, so I got to just do it by hand. So anyway, I thought, let me test my phosphates. I haven't done that in a while. So I have a Red Sea. I usually use Red Sea, but it's a few months. It expired a few months ago, so to make sure I get as good a reading as possible, I bought the Salford phosphate test kit, which is pretty simple to use. It has the powder and the liquid. It's pretty simple. So I went ahead and tested my phosphates, and they were at 1 part per million, which you can see right here where my thumb is. So they were right there at that color. So I went and broke out this old bottle of Phosphate RX. It wasn't expired or anything. It comes in a little bottle here with a solution. So when I was reading the directions, you basically do 6 drops per 10 gallons of water in your tank. So what I did is I figured my water capacity minus make sure and get as accurate as possible. So what I did was I took and did the dose in half. So I just did a half a dose to see what would happen. So, in the evening I went and I took and dropped, I believe I did 54 drops, which is half a dose for my tank, and I did it right next to the skimmer, not in the skimmer, but in the skimmer chamber of the sump. And I just did that one after the other, 54 drops. It clouded my water maybe for 20, 30 minutes, if that. And then you're supposed to wait 24 hours and check your phosphates again. It's very important to get a baseline and then keep checking your phosphates. And per the instructions, you don't want to drop it more than 0.5 parts per million in a 24-hour period. So the next morning, I got up, and this is only half a dose. I checked it, and here it was at 0.25 24 hours later. So it was right here. So it went from 1 part per million to 0.25 part per million. So I decided, I want to see if I can get it down to, as close to 0 as possible. I want to try to keep my phosphates at 0.03. So I went ahead, and you can dose it within, do another dose after 24 hours. So I did another half dose at 54 drops for my tank volume, half a dose. And 24 hours later, I checked it, and there it was at 0. Let's see, sorry, I have it upside down. It was 0.03. So it went within 48 hours, 2 doses, 24 hours apart. It went from that one, which is 1 parts per million, to 0.03. So we're going to see how that works. No ill effects, no coral problem, no anemone problem, no fish problem, no issues whatsoever. Again, I do half the dose. So what I would recommend, I'd highly recommend this product. I was very impressed with this product. Excellent. And hair algae started dying right away as soon as the phosphates were sucked out of the water. I highly recommend this product, but what I would recommend people do is start out, don't get in a hurry. Definitely check your phosphates, use a good kit, Salford or Red Sea, check your phosphates first. Then, after that, and then if it's more than 0.25, I would go ahead and then do half a dose for your tank, but make sure you account for the rock and sand displacement in your tank when you're figuring your water volume to get as accurate as possible. I know we can never be 100%. It's hard when you add rock and coral and different things along the way, but get as accurate as possible. And then I would do, if it was me, I'm just doing a recommendation, I would do half a dose first. And again, I don't run it through filter socks. Some people do that. I don't do any of that. I don't have filter socks in my tank. I use filter cups with carbon in it. So I don't, and you don't have to take out carbon. You don't turn off a skimmer. You don't do any of that. I just took and dripped it right into my skimmer chamber, and I did half a dose. I would recommend just simply doing half a dose and and then wait 24 hours, check it again, And again, you don't want to bring it down. Try not to bring it down more than 0.5 parts per million per 24-hour period. That's what the directions say. But again, I highly recommend it. Excellent stuff. Very impressed. Thanks, guys, for watching. Happy reefing.